Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Santa Barbara, wherever you are in this big blue earth listening? This is the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud, as always. Thank you for tuning in, whether you are live on AM 1090, the mightier, or listening on podcast platform on the LA Football Network or on YouTube at LAFB Network. Welcome to the program. Blessed to have you. I'm pumped today. Got a great show for you. Got some great games this weekend. Had a great weekend last weekend with football. Going 3-1, right? USC, another disappointing loss. But UCLA, big win over Stanford at the Farm. And our Rams and Chargers, some big wins on Sunday. So let's see if we can keep that energy going into this weekend, as we got some more big matchups. As ASU comes to the Rose Bowl, both 3-1. Pac-12 teams, first Pac-12 South matchup between these two teams, obviously, this season against UCLA, but it should be a big one. USC travels out to Colorado to play a struggling Buffs team. And then we got Chargers, Raiders week. The Raiders. And Rams, Cardinals, also two undefeateds facing off. Big one at SoFi. Both of them at SoFi, actually. Chargers play Monday night, so there you go. But yeah, I got a great show for you today. I'm going to be joined by Scott Gulbransen. He is co-host of Silver and Black Tonight to help me break down this Chargers-Raider matchup. And then Josh Weinfuss, he's ESPN's Cardinals beat writer, joins me to talk about this Rams-Cardinals game. As always, the LA Football Show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Head to betonline.ag. That's AG, not .com, .ag today, whether you're on desktop or mobile. Use the code NFL100. You're going to get a 100% sign-up bonus. Put $50 and you're going to get $50 back. That's free money, guys. Great lines. You can parlay the games. I stick to NFL. I sprinkle some college in there too. Sprinkle some college. So I had a great parlay bet, a 6-team parlay bet 2 weeks ago. 6-teamer. Nothing crazy. Like, I'm not throwing around crazy money. I usually put like $15, $20 in these parlays. Hopefully they turn into like 300. That's why I like the big teamers. And it makes it a little interesting. Everyone hit. So of my 6, my first 5 all hit. My last game was that damn UCLA Fresno State game. Of course I took UCLA. I'm on their high horse this year. They let me down. So that's my sad story about my parlay. But yeah, betonline.ag, head there. Tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. So let's quickly talk about this UCLA matchup with ASU. It should be a good one at the Rose Bowl. Both teams, like I said, 3-1. Jaden Daniels, a California kid, who is ASU's quarterback. Similar skill sets in a way to a DTR. Can definitely scramble, get outside the pocket, extend plays with his legs. He is successful through the air, 808 yards thus far through 4 games. So, nothing crazy numbers, but he's another quarterback that everyone's been kind of waiting to have that breakout season. Like every year it's like, okay, he might be the top quarterback in the Pac-12. And, he's never been bad. But he kind of struggles with the similar things of DTR, like the inconsistencies, right? But he's definitely a guy that's dangerous and can take over a game, can score at any moment. And, this UCLA team is going to have their hands full. What I like about this UCLA defense is where they've struggled in giving up the big plays, they've been very, very good in just their point of attack and, reining in on certain players that they're not going to let beat you. So I don't think they let Jaden Daniels beat you. I think they're going to force him to run the football, but it should be a very good one. I like UCLA. I just like this team. I think they got back to their roots last week, getting Zach Charbonnet the ball 23 times. I say that their roots is running the football, but that's the most carries Charbonnet's had this season thus far, to the tune of over 100 yards. And, getting Britton Brown in there to save Charbonnet's legs for the 4th. I think they're going to do that a heavy dosage again. And then DTR played great when he needed to most last week. And that's what you want to see from your quarterback. Like, we'd love to see him be this Heisman candidate, all-star type quarterback. But last week was kind of in my opinion, his best game as a collegiate athlete so far. Had that interim, we'll say early third to the mid fourth, where didn't make any mistakes, but just wasn't really in rhythm. The offense just was stagnant. And then when he had to at the end of the fourth, 2 monster drives. First drive was to the tune of 1 play for 75 yards, touchdown to Kyle Phillips. But then the second of the last drive down the field with, dealing with a shoulder injury and ended it with a game-sealing touchdown. So showed some grit, showed some leadership there. And I think that spills over into this game. And this is a hungry UCLA team. I think that Fresno State game, again, we talked a ton about it, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but woke them up a bit. Not that I said they overlooked Fresno State by any means, but it also woke them up saying, okay, we know our deficiencies, we know what needs to happen, and let's just now get back to what we are good at and what we built this offseason and winning football. So I think this is a good UCLA team, and I think they're gonna prove that again on Saturday against ASU. So should be a good one though. Make sure to tune in, all of you Bruins fans, or just collegiate fans or Pac-12 fans. Tune in and root on this Bruins football team. All right, let's get Scott in here to talk about this Chargers-Raider game. It's going to be on Monday night at SoFi. Should be a great one. And I'm really looking forward to getting his insight on this Raider team. It's the Raiders. We all hate the Raiders, right? But it's a great rivalry dating back a long time. So let's get Scott in here. Joining me now on the LA Football Show, right here on the airways of AM the Mightier 1090 and on the LA Football Network. You might know him because his show airs right after mine does on Friday nights. He's the co-host of Silver and Black Tonight and also VegasSportsToday.com. Scott Gulbransen, what's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
Ryan, good to have you on, man. You're giving me part of your hour now. So it's like, I feel like I'm cheating because I'm in the hour previous. But no, seriously, man, you guys are doing an amazing job. Love the show. It's about time LA has some football news and some football talk on the local airwaves. And obviously the Mightier 1090 allowing us to do that. Yeah,
no, appreciate that. That's the whole goal of why we're doing it. But yeah, hopefully people enjoy you because they're getting double Scott this 2 hour back to back. But we're having you in here to talk about this huge game. There's 2 weeks I love in football, covering the Rams and the Chargers. I love Niners week because it's a huge rivalry with the Rams and Niners. And I love Raiders week with this Chargers and Raiders, the rivalry getting back. I believe we did an article somewhere, and it's like their 124th matchup, dating all the way back to the AFL days. So the rivalry runs deep with these two organizations. So excited to get into it with you and break it down. But first, let me just start with this. I mean, what's the vibe in Vegas? 3-0. I don't know if anyone predicted Vegas being 3-0 to start.
No, I certainly did not, as my listeners will tell you, and as they chided me early on, saying that I was being a hater, right? Because I thought the Raiders could easily be 1-2 at this point, even worse, depending on what happened, because they had a rash of injuries. As you know, offensive line has been decimated by injuries for the Raiders. But the vibe is great. It's interesting though, Raider fans have been, I think, so beat up over the last few decades with the team. Of course, the historic 70s and into the 80s and the Super Bowl into 1983 when they were in Los Angeles, actually. And then since then, nothing, right? It's been disappointment. So I think people are cautiously optimistic. They're excited about 3-0. And I keep telling, and I'm going to tell them later on the show tonight, that look, be excited. Don't worry about later. Just be excited in the moment. Enjoy it. And hopefully they're able to sustain it. But clearly, I mean, the excitement, 2 overtime wins, both of those in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. I think Raider fans are ready for this, and they're finally seeing their quarterback play at an elite level. He's, I think, carrying the team, to be frank with you, because of what's been going on. And of course, the former Charger coach, Gus Bradley, has got a defense in Las Vegas. The Raiders haven't had a real defense in years. And so I think that in itself has been a great, great comfort to fans. They're very excited.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into Gus Bradley here in a minute. So, obviously a lot of love lost here with the Chargers. With him. Hey, it's good. He's not a bad guy, so nothing like that.
Yeah.
But first, I want to talk about your quarterback, because I've always been, I like to call myself kind of a quarterback apologist. And I mean that in that I believe there's like 2 to 3 elite quarterbacks that put them in any system, any team, they're going to still be good. Like there's the Aaron Rodgers, the Pat Mahomes. I guess you could argue now Tom Brady, seeing what he's done in Tampa, where they just make the team better around them. And they have kind of their own system. Outside of those 2 or 3, I think there's a lot of very, very good, talented quarterbacks that require the great steam, it's obviously some weapons and a lot. Like they just need, I'm not saying they're reliant on it, but they need more help around it to be good. Derek Carr's a guy that I thought is a very good quarterback, has a ton of talent, good arm, accuracy, smart. He's a leader. And a lot of people are always down on him. I'm like, well, no, I mean, look at the roster construction around him. Look at the stuff going on in the organization. Derek Carr can be very good. And we're seeing that this year, rated number 2 by PFF right now. And as you said, carry the team. What do you see as kind of this resurgence in Derek Carr? Has it always been there? It's just kind of the things I said, or is he actually playing at an elite level?
Well, it's interesting because I am actively and respectfully arguing with people over this, because what people are saying, and it follows a little bit of your train of thought, which is, okay, if Derek Carr, and we've heard this for years, right? So I've had a show covering the Raiders for 4 years, and ever since we've done that, I've heard the same thing every year up until this point, which was surround him with the tools he needs, right? So how many times have we heard that? So give him wide receivers, get him running backs, get him an offensive line. And so a lot of fans are quick to jump right now to say, well, of course he's doing better. He's got a defense, number one. They haven't had any defense. Instead of being last in the league, they are now middle of the road, which I've always argued that's all they need to be to a playoff contender with the way their offense is. So you have that. Then you have all these wide receivers. Now you have Henry Ruggs III, who's coming on now in his second year. You have Bryan Edwards, who's been money in the fourth quarter and overtime. You have Darren Waller, who to me is number 2 in the league, tight end, just behind Travis Kelce. Depending on the day, he might even be better. So you have those guys. You have Josh Jacobs, usually in the backfield. He's hurt again. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at Derek Carr, he's doing this with those tools, but he's not. So my argument is this, Ryan, is he is actually doing more than just getting by and doing what he normally does. I would argue that he has taken the next step, which is shocking in year 8, right? Because right now his offensive line is a hot mess. It is a hot mess. You're dealing with a center who's snapping the ball high, Andre James, who they signed to an extension inexplicably during the offseason, even though he's never been a full-time starter. So they replaced Rodney Hudson, perennial, Pro Bowler, with Andre James. Then you lose Denzel Good, the left tackle. You lose him, left guard. You lose him for the season to a knee injury. You got rookies on that line. Alex Leatherwood's on the right side. Colton Miller, of course, from UCLA, who's done a great job. So that's been a mess. So despite all of that, despite not having his top running back and no running game, Derek Carr has elevated. And he's done that, I think, doing things I've never seen him do before, like being confident in the pocket, under pressure, stepping up, creating plays downfield, which has been a criticism of his all along. So I actually think, and I'm shocked that I'm shocked in one hand that he is doing that so effectively through 3 weeks. I always was in the same boat as you. Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. He can win. Right. Yeah. That's always what I've said. Mm-hmm. But now he, to me, is playing like an elite guy. And of course, the MVP talk comes up. It's early, but he is playing at that level. And I wrote a piece up on our website this week saying, plain and simple, the reason they are 3-0 is Derek Carr.
Yeah, no, it's very valid. And just to follow up on that, do you think one of the things that I know one of his criticisms were kind of in the past was, the check down, not pushing the ball down the field, taking the safe play? Is that what we're seeing in year 8? Is it more just him finally being?
There was and I keep referencing it this week as I do radio spots around the country, there was a piece on the Raiders website during training camp where there was an interview with Carr, and he talked about for the first time in his career, he's coming into camp and his mind was free, right? He felt like completely a blank slate, open. I feel good. I got no pressure. I don't feel any pressure on myself. And I think there's 2 reasons for that. Number one is, the team's around him better. He's gained the confidence. But more importantly, Ryan, he's run that offense now into his 4th year, right? So, and you've heard a lot about the Gruden offense, about it, and that how people talk about it's complicated. You can hear Sims talk about, you can hear all these guys talk about how for a young quarterback or for a quarterback period new to the system, it takes a long time for them to get to it. So we saw him get better last year. He really did get better last year on the field. But then this year, he's so comfortable. And not only that, he's got a level of trust with those young wideouts that wasn't there yet last year. He would not trust those guys. Now they're all on the same page. So he's going through his progressions. He's finding Henry Ruggs over the middle, down the field. He's finding Bryan Edwards in clutch situations. He's not getting happy feet, and he's no longer what they used to call him, which was check down Charlie. He's going through those reads and finding opportunities to get the ball downfield.
Yeah, it's crazy that, coming into this league year, everyone talked about Pat Mahomes and obviously Justin Herbert with the Chargers, how great his rookie year was and the excitement around him. But then after that, everyone talked about the fall off cliff with Derek Carr, and then whether it was Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, And you have Derek Carr playing at MVP level. You have Teddy Bridgewater playing, I don't know if I'd say MVP, but playing fantastic.
Well, yeah.
This division might have the best 4 quarterbacks in the league at this point.
Right now, I mean, how could you argue against it at this point? I mean, you look at all 4 of those guys playing well. I mean, you could argue that Mahomes is actually the one struggling the most, which is mind-boggling to think about that. I'm sure he'll correct it over time. But nonetheless, yeah, I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of, I think, speculation around the Raiders. Are they for real? I think more of that should be on the Broncos, frankly, because the Broncos, the teams they've played are 0-9. I mean, they haven't played a team that's won a game this year, but you play your schedule, so it doesn't matter. But I like this division. And as you know, covering it, it's going to be a knockdown drag out all year long, and they're going to beat up on each other, which is why this game on Monday night is going to be so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, even when the teams are bad, it's still a knockout every single. Even when the Raiders and the Broncos have been bad, they can still beat anyone in the division.
And for LA Charger fans, because remember, I got to tell people too, because a lot of Raider fans, when I started this thing and started doing a Raider show with the move to Las Vegas, a lot of fans didn't like me because I grew up a Charger fan. Right. So I grew up in San Diego and went through the Air Coryell years and all that stuff. Yeah. But a lot of LA Charger fans might not realize, Al Davis's first job in professional football was working for the Chargers. Yeah. So there's lots of pictures and lots of history that go beyond the field, too, between them and him and Sid Gilman and a lot of guys there. And even going into the 80s and 90s with Steve Ortmeyer, who was with the Raiders, then back with the Chargers, then back with the Raiders. A lot of people said he was a traitor and all this kind of stuff. So the history is fantastic. Always makes it a fun game.
So, okay, and I don't want to get you in hot water, but you're on my show. We're on the LA Football Show, so you should be okay. And before we get into full preview, but you said you grew up a Charger fan. What made the switch to the Raiders then?
So here's what people asked me today, actually. They said, "Oh, are you a Raider fan?" And I say, "No, I cover them objectively. I am a fan of the Raiders doing well because I do a Raider show." Yeah. So when the Chargers left San Diego, and this is nothing against the people in Los Angeles, because I wasn't mad at them for moving to LA per se, because I understood the business side of it, but I was just done. So I was like, I'm done. I'm a San Diego guy. That was my team growing up as a kid. I grew up watching, like I said, Air Coryell, Dan Fouts, Kellen Winslow, all those guys. And so for me, it was just like emotionally, it was like, okay, I just need to turn it off. I don't hate on them like Raider fans do. Of course, my listeners and my readers do. But for me, that was kind of it. I just love football. Yeah. And again, because my wife was born and raised in Las Vegas. She's got 100 family members in Las Vegas. So that became the home team, being based in Las Vegas and all of that. And so we root for the Raiders to do well to represent Las Vegas.
Gotcha. And they announced the move, obviously, 2 years before they actually did move. So it gave you some
3
years.
Yeah,
that's right.
17.
Yeah, so you gave him some time to build up an audience there. So
yes,
makes sense. So okay, looking now, I mean, we talked obviously about Carr, about the offense a little bit, but looking at the defense, we got to talk about Gus Bradley. So I want to hear. I've been watching Raider games, but I want to hear it from you because Gus Bradley and this Chargers team, for the 4 years or so that he was here, one of the biggest critiques and criticisms of him, and rightfully so, was the lack of adjustments. Like it seemed like the game plan every week was great. If you watch Charger games or paid attention to them at all, the first half, the defense looked good. I mean, just look at last year. It was like they were beating the Bucs at halftime. They were beating the Chiefs at halftime. They were containing Brady, containing Mahomes, doing all this great stuff at half. And then they just run out of gas. They wouldn't make adjustments. Some of that had to do with injuries too, and just talent on the field in the second half. But that was the biggest gripe. Has he changed that, or are they just playing at a good level, throughout the game where they haven't really had to make adjustments?
It's a good question. I mean, it's early, right? We've only been through 3 weeks, but watching the defense and watching what Bradley has done, I've seen adjustments. I've seen him do that well. Now, again, this is a small sample size. You guys got to watch him for several seasons and see what he was doing there with frankly, a team that had more talent on defense than the Raiders currently do, although the Raiders have made significant draft capital investment in guys on defense, and like Max Crosby, who's got the most pressures and hits on quarterbacks, even though he doesn't have the most sacks. So that defense has played really well, and I think I really believe it to be one thing so far, and that is the Raiders had players who were playing out of position because Paul Gunther's defense and his scheme didn't fit the talent. It just didn't. They would go out and get guys, and you're like, why are they assigning this guy? He does not fit there at that position. And so Bradley came in, and he's done that. Bradley also came in and signed guys who are familiar with the system, including 2 that played in LA with the Chargers, right? With Perryman and Hayward. So he's got guys there who know that system. That's been a big deal. because the other players who were new to him, I think, have that mentor there in those guys who've been in the system who can make the calls on the field. The other thing is, they've just been able to pressure. As you know, Bradley doesn't blitz, right? He doesn't blitz hardly ever. The Raiders have blitzed 3 times all year, okay? But their front four continues to get consistent pressure, including, shutting down for the most part Lamar Jackson in week 1. So they've done a good job of that. I think their talent is playing well. But again, one thing, culture. I think Gus Bradley came in, the culture was bad. The defensive culture with the Raiders was bad. So how it plays out over time and if it's sustainable, we'll have to see for the rest of the season. But that alone, I think, has been a big deal. Playing guys where they should play. Jonathan Abram moving from free safety to box safety, which is where he should play. He's gotten better, as have a lot of the defensive backs, obviously with Ron Miles there. So I think that's partly it, and we'll have to see when we get to mid of the season how things are going and how that defense is adjusted.
Yeah, because so far you're right, they have looked good. And talking about Max Crosby, because here's a guy that mid-round draft pick. There was this excitement around him, rookie year and what he was able to do, but he's become like a top tier edge rusher. And what do you think has gone into that success?
Well, I mean, 2 things. They really dramatized it on the first game of the year on Monday Night Football, talking about his dealing with his alcoholism, right? So he got sober last year, and he really focused his life and decided that he was going to go out and not only fix that and take care of that, but also to train hard. John Gruden's famous for being in the office at 3 or 4 in the morning, right? He says every day he comes in, and he's not just BSing, we verified it. Max Crosby's there first. Like, Max Crosby is there. He's committed to his career. He's appreciative of where he's come and what he's overcome. And Darren Waller had a lot to do with that too, and kind of mentoring him. But this guy's motor, Ryan, does not stop running. And as you see that, I mean, even in 2 overtime games, you get in the overtime, Max Crosby, he doesn't get tired. I don't know why. The shape he's in the best shape of his life. He lost weight, gained muscle. He's gained quickness. He did a lot of agility stuff in the offseason. So he's just been one of those guys where I tell people, a lot of Raider fans already want to crown him a great NFL player. And I say, look, he's on the precipice of becoming a good, very good, probably impact NFL player. I mean, you got to do that over time. You can't just do it for 3 games, but he's there. I mean, if he continues on the track that he's on, and God forbid, hopefully he doesn't get injured or anything like that, he is on that pace to really, I think, become one of the top guys in the NFL. No question.
Absolutely. And, the Chargers have a very promising young rookie at left tackle in Rashawn Slater, who's looked fantastic. And then on the right, though, they're playing backup former XFL star Storm Norton, who, had his struggles against Micah Parsons, looked much better last week against Chris Jones, which helps when Chris Jones has one rush move, just the bull rush. That kind of helps stop the tackle. But
he looked good, though. You're right.
He looked a lot better.
Yeah.
You see Crosby, does he move around a lot? Does he primarily rush from one side, or how do they utilize him?
No, they move him on both sides, right? And you have Unique Ngakoue there too, who the Raiders signed in the offseason. He's been doing great things up there as well. So they're able to kind of move him around depending on the matchups. And so that's what I think kept him fresh too, is they just give him a new angle. And if somebody's shutting him down, they'll switch him around. But certainly against this Charger offense and the offensive line, it's going to be interesting to watch, because I think that's the one thing with the Raiders defense is they've played good teams again. Lamar Jackson, of course, they didn't have a running game, and the Ravens passing game is still a work in progress. So I think this is a great game for both these teams, because you look at that Raider defense, this is going to be the most balanced offense I think they faced so far. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Austin Eckler is great in the passing game, much like the Chargers, the Raiders, because they haven't had much of a running game. They've had to go to that short passing game. I mean, Eckler has 15 receptions in 15 targets over the last couple games. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be interesting to watch too, is how the Raiders defense deals with that. It's going to be a lot, I think, with the linebackers as well. Corey Littleton, the former Ram. We got a former Ram and a former Charger at linebacker for the Raiders. Yeah. So a big LA homecoming. So I think it's going to be an incredible matchup, and to watch those teams go at it should be really interesting, and it should prove out which team right now at least is kind of at the top of the heap.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating game, and a couple more, and we'll get you out of here, Scott. Last year, the last game they played, Raiders and Chargers, I think Darren Waller went off for 9 for 150 and a touchdown. The dude's a baller. Is going to be hard to stop regardless, but no Derwin James last year. Obviously, That's the X factor in this one. How do you see that matchup going? I would assume just what Staley's done using Derwin all over the field, playing him in the money, the star, lining up in the box. Like, the dude's everywhere. I assume he'll be very integral in playing Waller man on man. How do you see that matchup going?
You know what? I'm going to talk about that on our show tonight too, because I'm fascinated by that. I mean, I don't care what team you like, or if you don't like either team, to watch the matchup between Darren Waller and Derwin James is worth the price of admission alone, I think. So to see that, and I think, the last couple of weeks, Darren Waller was targeted 19 times in the Raiders' first win against Baltimore, right? And then each of the consecutive games, it's gotten less and less because Derek Carr has been so good. I mean, he's averaging 7-8 receivers a game, spreading the ball around. But I think against this Charger team, he's huge. If the Raiders are going to go down to SoFi and are going to win the game, or at least be there to win the game, Darren Waller's got to be present. He's your best player on the field, so he's going to be out there, but he's playing against Derwin James. And so that matchup is going to be key. If the Raiders can do it, if Darren Waller can win that matchup even a couple times at key moments, then that bodes well for the Raiders. But certainly going to be amazing to watch that as well. And then, the Chargers run defense too will be, if Josh Jacobs, who we don't know for sure, they've said he's kind of not going to play, but you don't know what's going to happen. And then Peyton Barber last week against the Dolphins, which is a very good defense. He had 111 yards, the most in his career for a guy they took off the scrap heap in Washington. And so if the Raiders can establish that running game too, I'm interested to see how the Chargers adjust and how they do against a Raiders running game. Although, again, the Raiders offensive line is patchwork. So they're going to have to do a lot to protect Derek Carr and to open up some holes for the running game.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chargers have been getting gashed in the run game, so I'm sure that was definitely a point of emphasis this week. But luckily, it hasn't totally cost them, or at least last week, because they were able to clamp down. So, but yeah, it's in my opinion, and I'll get probably more into it, but it's in my opinion that the winner of this game comes down to who wins that matchup, Derwin James or Darren Waller. If Waller goes off, I think the Raiders win. If Derwin can shut him down, and Carr's been great at spreading around, but if they force him to go elsewhere, I think the Chargers will come out on top. So, going to be a great matchup. I'm going to get you out of here on this. And it's probably not fair because you haven't been, and I haven't been before. But two of the best stadiums now in football, with Allegiant in Vegas, SoFi in LA. So first, have you been to SoFi? And then second, tell us something that makes Allegiant so fantastic.
So two things. One is I have not been to SoFi yet. I'm looking forward to going down there. And you know what Raider fans call SoFi, right?
I don't.
They call it the Raiders vacation home. So because of all the Raider fans that come in, but all jokes aside, it looks gorgeous. I mean, the NFL films complex or the NFL Network's complex next door and all that. Although that one I don't understand, because I think the NFL Network, the NFL's building looks like an old FBI building, which I thought was kind of strange because the rest of the complex is so beautiful. That's my only criticism. But with Allegiant Stadium, I think what makes it so special is when you walk into it, the history of the Raiders, they really brought it to bear inside the concourse in all areas. And then they put a Vegas touch on it. So you see paintings of Frank Sinatra in a Raiders jersey. It seems kitschy, but it kind of fits because it is Vegas after all. And then just being there off the Las Vegas Strip, and they haven't opened the doors yet, the lanai doors that look over the strip. Over the Strip. But that to me makes it, I think it's the location. I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. SoFi is a beautiful stadium. You can't go wrong with either one of them, but I do think that it's the location piece of it. If you're a visiting fan, for example, when the Chargers come up later in the year, if you're a Chargers fan and you come to Vegas, yeah, you want to win the game, but you're going to have a great time on the Strip too, right across the street. So it's the Vegas mystique. It's the proximity to other entertainment. You can go watch a hockey game, then go watch an NFL game right next door down the block. So I think that's the kind of mystique of it, as Vegas just being a travel destination. But both beautiful facilities and huge for all the teams involved, because none of them have ever had their own true stadium that they could call their own.
Will be a great game. Monday Night Football. Scott Gulbransen, host of Silver and Black tonight. If you're on AM 1090, you'll be hearing in about 30 minutes or so. Scott, thanks for jumping on with me, man. Appreciate it.
All right. I'm going to go warm up, my man. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you again. We'll get you on our show soon, too, for sure.
Looking forward to it anytime. Yeah, warm up those vocals, but we'll talk at the game. Okay?
Thanks, Ryan.
Welcome back to the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday in the Southland. Every day is a beautiful day here, right? And speaking of beauty, crack yourself a nice cold beer from my friends at Brewery X. They are located in Anaheim on the La Palma Beer Trail, right off the 57 freeway. Huge beer garden right near Anaheim Stadium or Honda Center. I mean, perfect location if you're in Orange County. If you're not in Orange County and don't want to make the drive and visit them in person, I was at Total Wine in Pasadena just 2 days ago, and they got Brewery X there. You can pick it up at any Total Wine, Bevmo, or Trader Joe's. So check it out. They got great IPAs. The Battlesnakes Pilsner is my favorite if you like a nice, light, crisp, cool beer. They have an SOK Mexican lager if you're into that. So they got some good stuff there. So check out my friends at Brewery X. Tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. Big thanks to Scott for jumping on with me. Good preview there. Huge game for this Chargers team. If they can knock off the Raiders, knock them to 1 loss, they would move to 3-1. If the Broncos lose as well to Baltimore, you have your Chargers as the sole leaders in the division. You know, it's early. You'd have 3 teams at 3-1, so they would essentially have the tiebreaker because they have the division lead with 2 wins. But that's saying something about this team and about this coaching staff, what they've done so early. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is a big game. The Raiders have looked good, as we talked about. But I think the Chargers, it's going to come down to matchups. It's going to come down to their best players playing the best. That's what it's going to come down to, which you can say for every Sunday, but sometimes there's, certain coaching things, certain schemes. This, to me, is going to come down to mano-a-mano, who wins their matchups. Does Derwin beat Darren Waller? Does Justin Herbert play lights out again? Does the Chargers offensive line handle Max Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, and the Raiders pass rush? That's what it's going to come down to. Mano-a-mano, man-on-man, pad-on-pad. Who wants it more? Let's see what the Chargers do. Rams, another big one, too, which we're going to get into right now, because this Rams team plays a very good Cardinals team, an explosive Cardinals team with Kyler Murray, number 1 offense right now. So Josh Weinfuss is going to break it all down for us. Works for ESPN, so great guest. Met him last year. Covered Frostee for many years when he was in Arizona, so they have a good history. Frostee, unfortunately, couldn't jump on with me today. He is traveling. He'll be back, don't worry, for Trojan Roundtable. But yeah, joining me now on the LA Football Show on the airways of AM, the Mightier 1090, and on the LA Football Network to help me preview this Rams and Cardinals game. 2 unbeatens. Can't wait to get into it. He is the beat writer for ESPN covering the Cardinals, Josh Weinfuss. What's up, man? How you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's it's been a while. We had you on last year, so happy to get you back on here because obviously you know your stuff, so this should be fun. But first, man, let's just get the thoughts on Cardinals Nation. How's everyone feeling about this 3-0 team? Does it feel legit? Does it feel real, or is it still some questions because of what happened last year?
I have a lot of questions because of what happened last year. I'm still tentative to go all in on this team just because, we saw this a year ago and then they totally bottomed out. Granted, Kyler Murray did get hurt, so he was dealing with multiple injuries, the first, 3 weeks after the bye, and that kind of put this team into a tailspin. But I will say this team feels a lot different than last year's team, right? There's a lot more depth offensively. There's a lot more talent surrounding Kyler Murray. So from that standpoint, I do feel better about this team. But overall, like I said, we don't know how this team's going to handle the second half of this season. We don't know how Kyler's going to, keep up health-wise. But for now, this team's looking very good. They're putting up a boatload of points. Yeah. I think right now the biggest issue, which I thought would be the opposite, is the defense.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue because, I don't think it's any mystery now how good Kyler Murray is. And anyone that doesn't watch football. The dude is an easy top 10, maybe you could argue top 5 quarterback in the league with what he can do with his legs and with his arm. And you could say it was with every team. I mean, the team goes where the quarterback leads them. Right. But is this defense good enough to carry them down the stretch? Do you think is this a Vance Joseph-led defense you think is going to continue to get better? Or is there a lot of questions that leave a lot to be desired?
Still a lot of questions. I mean, it's been 3 weeks, right? So obviously there's a lot of time left. But they played so great week 1 that at that point I was ready to be like, this is a Super Bowl contending team. Like, if this defense plays like that every week, they are going to the Super Bowl. Like, you pair that defense with this offense, they were unbeatable. But then they came back to earth week 2 against the Vikings, gave up like 160 something rushing yards. Last week, wasn't much better in Jacksonville. They played pretty bad that first half, but then they cranked up in the second half. But still, it's the Jags. They lost 17 straight, so you can't really put a lot of stock into that game. So I was talking with a few people this week. Like, this game and next week's game against the Niners, that's going to be my true gauge of just how good this team is on both sides of the ball. Because you played the Vikings, Jaguars, definitely not good. I mean, the Titans was a big win, but that was also a lot of that was based on a year ago, so every team's different every year. But, this defense, could be really good. If they stop the run up front, like they have the pass rushers to really disrupt an offense. And their cornerbacks have been playing much better than we expected. The secondary, the deep secondary, the safeties, they're pretty good. So if they can stop the run first and foremost, then I think this could be a formidable defense. But they have to stop the run for that to happen.
So you kind of answered my next question, but just to go into a little deeper, looking at this Rams offense and what they've been able to do with Matt Stafford and kind of I don't know if call it a weakness, but they really haven't needed to run the football just because of what Stafford's done through the air. So with the Cardinals defense, I guess, like you said, you kind of answered, but what's their strength and what's their weakness? Is the strength the pass, the weakness is the run, or kind of how does that defense tick for those that don't know much about the Cardinals?
I think right now, I think that's safe to say. I think they are pretty good against the pass or against the pass, the air game. When you have Chandler Jones coming off the edge one side, then you have guys like Isaiah Simmons, Marcus Golden, J.J. Watt coming off the edge. The other side, like that could put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, and teams are obviously game planning for those types of guys. So I think it's going to be a matter of whether the Rams can control that, which the Jags did a really good job, and so the Vikings did a great job of that. They basically pushed those guys out wide and they ran up the middle. So if they can do that, then I think that the Rams it might get ugly pretty quickly. But if Chandler Jones can get to Stafford quickly, and then you can get then obviously the Rams will shift over and try to defend him with a guy or two, chip him a little bit. That opens up things for the other side. So if you can get to Stafford early, I think it's going to force them into a different type of game, right? I mean, obviously, if you're looking at second and long, third and long, they're going to have to pass the ball, and that's kind of in their bread and butter. But you need to be able to force them to run the ball. And how do you do that? I mean, I don't know, because obviously every scenario of you taking the lead is going to lead to them passing more. So they need to be able to get to Stafford, rattle him if they can, make some plays on the ball in the air, and then basically deter him from doing certain things. And if they can do that, then I think they can win this ball game. If they can't, it's gonna be a battle.
Yeah. This Rams offense has certainly been fun to watch so far, especially last week against the Buccaneers, who same thing not same thing, but they have a very strong, rush defense, run defense, and not as strong as a pass defense. And, Sean McVay and Matt Stafford definitely put that on display by, passing all over for 4 touchdowns. So we know how great Chandler Jones is, had 5 sacks in that first game. How good, again, for those that haven't been watching, like how has that 3 pairing of Golden, Simmons, J.J. Watt, are they kind of coming to their own? Is it a true rotation? Is Watt the lead man? Kind of how's the other side of that pass rush looking thus far?
Yeah, so Watt tends to play a little bit outside, but a little bit inside, if that makes sense. He's not like a true off-the-edge pass rusher. So he's been getting a lot of reps there. Then Simmons has been all over the place, right? He really rarely comes off the field. And then, Marcus Golden has kind of been that primary number 2 pass rusher. I say number 2, but he's the opposite side of Chandler Jones. Mm-hmm. So they just bring all sorts of firepower off the edge. They really do. There's a lot of talent there, but it's a matter of getting to the quarterback. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not getting the quarterback, it doesn't matter. So, we saw what Jones did week 1, 5 sacks, totally dismantled Titans, tackle Taylor Lewin. And then weeks 2 and 3, I think he's had 1 sack combined. So teams obviously don't want him to beat them by himself, right? So they're game planning towards him. They're trying to figure out how to push him wide or get him stuck in the middle and either go outside of him or inside of him. And I watched very specifically for a couple of drives week 2 against the Vikings, and they were obviously clearly going away from him and J.J. Watt, So I think if both those guys are on the same side, expect the ball to go to the other side. And I think but basically whatever side Chandler Jones on, they're going to try to go away from him. So it's a matter of him getting to Stafford as quickly as humanly possible to, his forte is a strip sack. So if he can just get his hand on the arm, get his hand on the ball, then he can make things happen.
Yeah. So dangerous and so fun to watch. And obviously we heard about the contract stuff right before the season started. And, yet game 1, he definitely made a case for what he wants to make happen. So looking at the offense, Josh, for me, when I looked at this Cardinals team, I thought they had a good offseason, really built stuff on the defense. And on paper, it's such a good team. And obviously they're 3-0 for a reason. But what my biggest concern for them was the offensive line, which has probably been the case for, a few years now. And just you talked about Kyler Murray, how good he was last year, but then got injured and, played through it, but can't be Kyler Murray when he's hobbling around out there. How's the offensive line looked? Has it looked improved, or is it just Kyler Murray being Kyler and going out there and making plays, running for his life?
he's made them look better. You know, like this
Yeah.
you don't have to have a great offensive line to play in front of this offense because you're not blocking as long as you are for other guys because he's either getting the ball out or he's moving. Granted, you do have to be a little more athletic because you are probably on the move more so in this scheme than you are in other schemes, but you know, you're not, and they love to go so fast that you're not sitting there for a 5-6 second play. It's 1, 2, 3 out, next play, right? So you have to be in condition, but you don't have to block as long. So that's been good for them. I guess I say that. Let me take that back. You don't block as long when he stays in the pocket. When he's out of the pocket, you're just trying to get the closest guy to you and get your hands on him and just try to not, you know. But Kyler makes so many things happen with his feet that it makes up for any deficiencies in this line. Could the tackles be better at times? Sure. I think that, you know, if you kind of look at his two big plays in the first few weeks, you know, the 43.5-yard scramble for the 18-yard touch or for 18-yard pass in week 1 against the Titans, and then the 77-yard touchdown pass against the Vikings where he spun out of a sack and threw a deep ball to Rondale Moore on the run. Those were both plays that were caused because the tackles didn't really do their job. So he got them out of that. So guys are getting saved because of Kyler Murray, but this offensive line's fine. Like, it's not great. It's not terrible. It's just fine. And I think that's, for right now, that's good enough. But I think at some point they're going to have to do a little better job of giving Kyler a little more time because you can't rely on Kyler Murray to make plays every single week with his feet, you know, game-saving touchdown type of plays when he really needs to be back there throwing passes, really, with what it comes down to. He said before the season he didn't want his feet to be a luxury. His feet are definitely have been a luxury, you know, the first few weeks. And, you know, I think for the Cardinals to have long-term success this year, that can't happen, right? Yeah. But like I said, the offensive line isn't great, isn't terrible. It's just fine.
Yeah. And I love what you said in the beginning there that, you know, quarterbacks can make their offensive lines look better. We've seen in LA, even with Matt Stafford, who I think this Rams offensive line has played very, very good through the season. And Brian Allen was the big question mark at center. And I thought he's played fantastic. I think PFF's graded him at like a top 3 center. And so respect to him, but part of that is too, you know, Matthew Stafford getting rid of the ball quicker,
100%.
making decisions quicker. So the quarterback can certainly make your offensive line look better, which is what I think Kyler Murray does every week. I talk all the time about this Rams receiving core and how I think they're the best, you know, in the league. I think top 5, just from 1 to 5. You go from, you know, Cooper Kupp, if you want to say he's 1, and Tutu Atwell's 5, and all the guys in between. That's a pretty solid receiving core. Are the Cardinals, though, the best receiving core in the game? I mean, are you kidding me? Like Hopkins, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore. You say, are they the best in the game?
It's hard to argue against that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have the best receiver in football in DeAndre Hopkins. You have AJ Green, who, he's 33, but I mean, he had 100 yards last week and he looked fantastic. I mean, he's your number 2. You know, I mean, I don't care how old he is. It's a pretty dang good number 2. Rondale Moore is just incredible, you know, lightning fast, super athletic, super quick rookie. And then you have, you know, Christian Kirk, who is a fantastic 3 or 4, depending on how you want to line them up. So I think 1 to 4, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm a homer, but I think it's really hard to find another top 4 that are as good as what the Cardinals have, simply because of, you know, talent, name, experience, all of that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And, you know, just because of Hopkins at the top, and it's crazy how, and, you know, injury is obviously a part of this game, but it's crazy how a guy in AJ Green, you know, has had some injuries the last 2 seasons and he's just like forgotten about. Like, I don't even think half the league knows he's on Arizona, and the dude puts up 100 last week and they're like, oh wait, AJ Green's still playing and he's really good still.
And what's crazy is last couple of weeks, DeAndre Hopkins has been nothing but a decoy, right? Like he's not even having big games yet. Like, wait till he gets rolling and he's putting up 100-yard games. And, you know, AJ Green's putting up 100-yard games. Like, and then you have guys like Kirk can put up 60, 80 yards like that. Rondale Moore can just blast a 60, 70-yard touchdown run. Like, they have so much firepower on this offense that it just needs to be harnessed in the right way. Then I think it could explode at some point. When that's going to happen, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, they've been, you know, they were averaging about 36 through 2 games, and then they went ahead and scored about 31 last week. So they're putting up a lot of yards and a lot of points, all because of this receiving core and how good it is.
Yeah, I think they're 2 in yards and 1 in points right now after 3 weeks. But so, all right, mano a mano, who are you taking, DeAndre Hopkins or Jalen Ramsey?
I would take Hopkins, and here's why.
Okay.
It's not because of his ability to catch the passes. It's because of his ability to get those pass interferences, right? So to him, a pass interference is just as good as a pass. So he can frustrate guys. He knows how to get under people's skin. And I mean, I don't know Jalen Ramsey personally at all. I've watched him a little bit, but I feel like he's probably pretty easy to get under, to annoy. And I think that's kind of D-Hop's specialty, besides catching these crazy touchdowns. And I mean, he had a play in week 1 against Tennessee. He was running along. It was a broken play, running along the back of the end zone. Kyler throws it to him. He catches it in midair. He jumps. It's a jump catch. Looks down to see where his feet are, like in midair, and puts and taps his toes for the touchdown. I mean, it's like time slowed down. It was like the Matrix. Like nobody else is moving but him. I mean, obviously he has that type of skill, but he also has the smarts to be like, I know how to lure this guy in. I know how to get that body contact. I'm gonna get the DPI. I'm gonna get the 35-yard gain, and not have to make a play at all.
Yeah. It's like that Spidey sense or that Hopkins sense, I guess. Is he a talker, or is he more of a quiet get under your skin? Like, I'm going to let my talking be on the field and maybe I'll say a thing here or there. Because when we watch like Ramsey and DK Metcalf, you can see them like jawing all game, or a lot of the other receivers. Because Ramsey is a huge talker, like you kind of didn't know for sure. Yeah, he's a huge like trash talker. Is Hopkins one of those, or is he more quiet? Let me just do the talk on the field.
He's quiet. Let me do my talking on the field. He comes from like the Larry Fitzgerald school of thought, because Fitzgerald was a really big influence on him, a big mentor. Same with AJ Green. They don't talk a lot of smack. They just kind of go out there and do their job. They do it very, very well. Yeah. And I think that just annoys guys even more when you're making plays and you're not talking and you're not talking back. Like that got to annoy the defensive backs more than anything when they're just yapping. You're making these plays and you're just not saying anything. So that's kind of his style. But I think he loves it when he makes a big play and he's kind of like, try to stop that, that type of thing.
Yeah. And he's the one receiver that really does. I think Ramsey's the best corner in the game. Obviously, not trying to be a homer either, but just what he brings. But that matchup is just going to be fun to watch because I think it's one that they have had back and forth success throughout the years. So, last two, I'll get you out of here with Josh. Thanks again, Josh Weinfuss from ESPN joining us. With the Rams and the Niners, I know Rams fans get so sick of this. Everyone talks about Kyle Shanahan has McVay's number and yada yada, but the Rams have had to the last 4 seasons, more success in the playoffs and whatnot. But that's been like the storyline between the Rams and Niners. Obviously, with the Rams and Cardinals, Sean McVay hasn't lost to the Cardinals. How sick is this team of having to hear that they haven't beat the Rams in the last 4 seasons?
So here's what's interesting about that. Like, this team is so different than last year's team and so different than 2 years ago, where there aren't a lot of guys who've experienced that type of loss. But I will bet you a ton of money Cliff Kingsbury does not want to lose another game to Sean McVay. They're good friends. I'm sure Sean rides him for it all the time. And I think Cliff just wants to say, you know what? Like, as Eli Manning did the other day, throw him the double bird and say, we got this one. And I'm sure that's playing on Cliff's mind quite a bit.
Yeah. Have you been to Cliff's like desert mansion yet?
I have not. I've not gone to the invite. Maybe one day, but I heavily doubt it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you never know. We'll see. We'll fingers crossed. All right, so who you got in this one? I think power rankings, they mean nothing 3 weeks in, but right now I think the Rams are 1, the Cards are 8, I believe. So great matchup either way. Division rivalry, 3-0 both. Who you taking?
It's so
LA.
Tough. It is in LA. I don't know. I think it's have to go. I think at this point I'm going to go with the Rams. I think the Cardinals defense is too much of a liability. I think Kyler Murray's going to blow up. He'll throw another 400 yards. 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, that type of game. But I think that the Rams are just going to take advantage of the issues on defense. I think having a rookie cornerback is going to be like Matthew Stafford eating at a buffet. Like, he's just going to keep going back and back and back. So I think the Rams are going to win. I think it'll be close. Now, the flip side of that is, like, if the Cardinals win, I'm not going to sit here and be totally shocked about it. But I just think that the Rams are going to take this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a good game. I just think this Rams offense we still haven't even seen the full potential yet. Like, what they did in training camp, I was there as many days as I could. Like, they haven't even shown all the stuff they installed in training camp yet. They're just still going to be bringing more stuff out, which is exciting. The biggest thing for me in this matchup is the Rams haven't played a mobile quarterback yet. I mean, they've played Andy Dalton, Carson Wentz, who can be mobile, but he's pretty much not mobile anymore with his injuries, and then Tom Brady. So how are they going to play against Kyler Murray, and how is Aaron Donald and this defensive line going to be able to contain him and not let him get space? Because that'll be the difference. If he can get out and get loose, this could be a totally different game, and the defense may not be able to stop them. So,
100%. If this game could end up being decided on a broken play, well, I just wrote a story about it today. Actually, how guys, it's so frustrating for guys to defend Kyler. And it could be decided on a scramble drill, really. And the Cardinals have become so good at knowing, the receivers have become so good at knowing where to go, where to be, what position to be in when he breaks containment, that, this game could easily come down to one of those types of plays.
Yeah, well, in football, it's so calculated, right? Like every play is calculated. Every person has a job. And when there's one player out there that can go off script and throw everything against the wind and break it down and destroy things, there's nothing more frustrating for a defense when that happens. And that's Kyler's specialty. So it'll be fun to watch.
And it could wear them down too. I mean, if he starts to get out of the pocket and you're having these big dudes going sideline to sideline a couple times a quarter, that could play a toll later on too.
Yeah, absolutely. The depth will be a big thing too with how guys can do. So, Josh, man, appreciate you as always. It was great catching up again. Thank you for taking the time, and hopefully we'll see it SoFi. Enjoy the beautiful stadium. I mean, you haven't been there yet.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I haven't. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the game. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Thanks for having me.
There he goes. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to all of you, the listeners. That's going to do it for the LA Football Show. Didn't get into USC much. They do travel to Colorado, to Boulder, both struggling teams. Colorado 1-3, USC 2-2. Really just want to see improvement from this team. So don't have time to get too much into it, but want to see improvement. Dante Williams at practice talked about they switched things up this week. Wednesday was fully padded, had a lot more hitting drills to try to keep that swagger, that momentum, that juice, and hopefully that spills over to the game on Saturday. So, it's good to see at least he's changing things up in practice. Like if the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over and over again. So hopefully this will spark something for this team. And this is a better team than Colorado. Like no ifs, ands, buts about it. Whoever's playing quarterback, I know Keaton Slovis has had his struggles, and now it's all like, okay, we want Jackson Dart. But Keaton Slovis can still play quarterback. Yeah, he might not be as great as we may have thought he was, or at least he's not playing that way end of last year and now into this year. But he can still play quarterback. The guy is not terrible. He can still run this offense effectively if he does it to his potential. Keontae Ingram, want to see him get going, who finally got to kind of start last week at running back, has a lot of talent. See him get going against this Colorado team and just see this defense not give up freaking gash plays. Colorado's quarterback, true freshman, really struggled so far this year, barely over 50% completion percentage. So this defense has no excuses not to play great against this Colorado offense, because the Colorado offense is a work in progress. It's a rebuild. So this USC defense should be able to shut them down. USC's offense should be able to get going through Keontae Ingram and through Keaton Slovis, getting back to basics. So we should see hopefully a win for the Trojans, get back on track. And, they can still have a season. 2 losses. 2-2 looks terrible, I know, especially for USC fans. But you end up going 9-2. It's not, not horrible. Obviously, we know that's not to their standards, but you just fired a coach. You're going through a lot of adversity, and then you build for next year. But starts with one. Go, as Dante Williams says, got to go 1-0 this week. Got to go 1-0 today. So we'll see that game. But hope you guys enjoy all the games this weekend. Rams Cardinals going to be a great one. I am pumped for that one at SoFi. And then Chargers Raiders again on Monday night at SoFi. So I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen. We are on every podcast platform. We are the LA Football Network and LAFB Network on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Check out LAFBnetwork.com for all of our articles. Just got to give a quick shout out. I was doing some analysis yesterday. We published 100 articles in the month of September. 100 articles, all dedicated to your Los Angeles football teams. No one else is doing that. No one else is doing that. I'm super proud of the team we've built over there and what we're creating. And I hope you guys are too. So make sure to check that out. Let me know your thoughts. Hit me up on Twitter. Have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy. Hit you guys next week. Peace.